Hello, welcome to the All or Nothing podcast. Our official sponsors are KR Couriers and Transport Limited. This is a Northwest based courier company delivering all across the UK. They can assist in home moves and removals to large, heavy and bulky items, collections and drop-offs. Fast, safe and reliable deliveries. Please get in touch for a free quote. You'll find all the information within the description. Thank you. Hello everybody and welcome back to the All or Nothing podcast with myself, Billy Moore, and today's special guest is former prison officer and prison governor, Holly Daglish.
Pleased to meet you.
Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
Holly, really excited to have you here. You know, you've worked in some of the most dangerous prisons in the UK, and some of the biggest in Europe.
Yes.
Walton, HMP.
Walton and Manchester, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself growing up.
Okay, so I had a really sort of what you'd deem a good childhood. There was trauma in the background, which I won't go into, but generally a very middle class, like got my A-levels, went to university, did a psychology degree, wanted to sort of go into that field. Never in a billion years did I think I'd end up in the prison service. I was really interested in psychology. I wanted to be in the police originally. So fucking glad I didn't join the police now, but I really wanted to sort of I had an obsession with like serial killers and how and why people behave and why they do what they do. I'm not sure where that came from really, but yeah, I was a bit of a raver. I was a bit of a party girl, so I'd had quite a bit of life experience before I joined the prison service, because everyone thinks you join the prison service with your angel wings, yeah, and that you've never tried drugs and you've never drunk and you've never been to a rave and you've never done. So I wasn't innocent. I did all that. I used to come to Cream regularly. Cream was like, when it was at its pinnacle, when it was like the place to be. So I used to come to Cream quite a lot. So I'd lived life, I was incredibly independent. But so I'd left university and I was actually going to go on and do a master's, but got offered like this short-term job in a hospital. But it was like self-contracting and it was like month to month to month and it wasn't really going anywhere. My dad suggested joining the prison service and I was like thinking I'd never get in a million years. I think I was probably stoned when I went for my exams or something, because I was like at university we were proper stoners. So I never thought I'd get in. So I just went for these tests and these exams and things like that. Never in a million years. And I remember my dad saying, well, it's a bit like the police, but you should be able to do like your psychology there. And I was like, all right, okay. Having no clue what I was letting myself in for. And I just got this phone call one day and this woman said, congratulations, you've made it into style. And I was like, what style? Where's style? What is it? I applied for Manchester.
Yeah.
And I asked her what style. She said it's a women's prison. I was like, no. I know what women are like. I did not apply for a women's prison. I don't want to work at a women's prison. Women are awful. I already knew like a big group of women, and particularly female juveniles and young offenders, would be awful. And I'd had a nice life. Yeah, I'd had my times. I'd had my bits go wrong and my traumas and things like that. But I had a good life and some happy times. And that was all going to be destroyed by working with female prisoners. So I said, well, no, actually, I've applied to Manchester. And she said, well, it's style or nothing. So I thought, right, go to style, do as short a time there as possible, get to Manchester. I've always got on with fellas really well. I think I'm not like, I wouldn't say like I'm one of the guys. I'm not really, but I get on better with them. I don't know why. So I just thought it'd be easier to work with men than women. And then I went
Think you were a bit of a tomboy growing up, or?
Yes, and no. I was a bit of a. I'd had a few scraps. I was always one who stood up for the underdog.
Not as feminine as most girls.
No,
Yeah.
I was like, I was just a bit crazy when I was young. I was just a bit wild, but I always stood up for the underdog. I remember a friend of mine. He wasn't blessed, bless him, in the looks department, and he came back from the chip shop where I lived crying because he'd been bullied. And I went up there and smacked his bullies. And that's kind of what I've been like, I root for the underdog. I don't like people. I don't like bullying. I don't like, so I've always had a bit of sense of justice.
Totally relate to that. Yeah.
And I guess as well during the prison service, I thought I could do some good. And I guess I did at some points, but yeah, I wanted to work with men. I just had a feeling that men would be more respectful. And generally my experiences later on were that they were more respectful than women. And if I'm being absolutely honest, right, this is my big confession, women absolutely terrified me, okay? I was like 21, like hair on top of my head, like this, sounded southern, so that didn't go down well up north anyway. So it was like, and I looked so young, like I was 21, and there's these like 40-year-old heroin addicts who've seen it all, done it all. They're not going to take a bit of notice about what I say, are they? They've got kids older than me, So yeah, I was terrified, and it was nothing like I'd ever experienced, let's say.
And how long did you spend in Style? Because I know I've been to Style on visits, like wanted to see me. Well, doesn't matter who went to see me.
Yeah, less said the better.
Less said, in case he has a cob on. But anyway, what was it like in Style? What was the worst experience you had ever had in a women's prison?
God, it's really difficult to say because there were so many and they were so different in how they affected you. So I got quite badly assaulted. That was really, really tough. Looking back now and looking back on my career, it's what I needed because I was cocky as fuck. I thought when I went into Style, I thought I've got to be cock of the north here because I was so scared that I thought if I was hard on people and I came across as hard, then that would serve me right. That would serve me well. And it was about 2 years into my service. And this girl, she was only 18 years old. And I'm like just 5'2". And she was tall, big girl, big in stature, really big attitude. And she scared me, but I would never back down from her because, again, she was a bully. I don't like bullies. I would, I'd stand up for myself and stuff like that. And she got me one night. She got me good and proper. And she got me in a chokehold, like from behind, one of those ones that can put you to sleep quite quickly. Yeah. Scary, really scary. Had an out-of-body experience. Knew there were no staff in the area, in the vicinity. Knew I couldn't scream because my throat was constricted. So I'm doing these little pathetic body punches, and she was just like the strength of God knows what, Hercules, or that's how it seemed. And she was doing damage. She was like raining blows down on my head. I was being choked out. I thought something was going to happen. It was actually a prisoner who initially intervened and jumped on her back. And she alerted staff, and staff came and helped me. But I still had to restrain the woman that had assaulted me before other staff came along, because women prisons, unlike male prisons, don't have as many staff. Which is crazy because they're deemed like lower risk or whatever. Are they shite? They're the worst of the worst to work with. So yeah, damaged my neck, which is still damaged to this day. I still have problems with this shoulder. And mentally, it burst that bubble. Yeah. So all that cocky, you'll do what I tell you, it just went. And I remember a senior officer, my boss, saying to me after 6 weeks, now, nowadays, if that happened to you, you'd be off work for 6 months and you'd probably be out of the job on retirement, yeah? We're going back 1998. And my boss said to me, come back in, otherwise you'll never come back in. It's like riding a bike, riding a horse, just do it, come back in. So after 6 weeks, I came back in, and to say I was shaking like a shitting dog because my invincibility cloak bubble had been burst. But talk about give me a sense of humility and a sense of, it's almost like it took away my fear. And it gave me a new sense of respect for the job that I was doing and the impact that you know, of my words and how I said and did things. But she was a very dangerous woman. She assaulted many staff. So that was sort of like the physical side of it. And there was sort of the recovery side of it. But I'm glad I was made to go back in when I did. Mentally, I remember one day, so that, you know, I've done quite a few podcasts and talked about various incidents, and I don't want to repeat myself because there were so many. So there was one day, and my landing tended to be the landing where all the self-harmers were, those that were at suicide risk, and it was landings, just a ground floor landing, cells facing each other. And because these women were deemed really high risk of suicide or self-harm, they didn't go to work. Unlike other landings where they'd be sent off to work or education and you'd only have like a handful of women to keep your eye on.
These would be classed as 2052s, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
The 2052s is
yeah, it was like an orange booklet, wasn't it?
Protocol in it.
Yeah, so it's been replaced now by another document, but at the time it was a really bright orange document.
Yeah.
So
I remember it well.
Yeah, they'd be laid out on the desk, wouldn't they? Yeah. So everyone would know who was on one. It was like
I was on one, Ollie, right, and I'll tell you why. I'm not, I'm not embarrassed to share my honesty as well. You know what I mean? I'm quite open with it. But for me, it was a 2052 was a suicide watch, right? So it was every 15 minutes. They were supposedly to come and check on you. Now, for me, it was an easy route to get out your cell and stand on the land and listen.
Do a bit of cleaning, maybe.
Speak to the listener. But for me, it was also a manipulative tactic to graft on the landings, to get out, to get a little jailie from someone, a little score there, and you know, get me drugs. So, but then you'd see them that you just mentioned, them folders on the table in the SO's office, and your photograph would be on the front, and they'd be going, "Fucking, get on him." Yeah, you know what I mean. So
one way you're out there, aren't you? And people are seeing you, but on the it
was a risk of being judged.
Exactly.
So that's just clarifying for people who don't know what a 2052 or a vulnerable prisoner is in that sense. So,
like I said, it's been replaced by a new document, but they're all but the same. So when a prisoner comes in and says they either feel suicidal or they are at risk of self-harm, we used to open one of these orange documents and we'd write all our observations. So it was mandatory that prison staff, like you said, every 15 minutes, and it wasn't always every 15 minutes. Sometimes it'd be 3 times a day if they were deemed quite low risk. If you were withdrawing from drugs, you were deemed a higher risk, so we probably would observe you every 15 minutes. And sometimes that's just a visual check, or sometimes it's a chat. How are you, Billy? How are you doing today? How are you feeling? But there would, one of the strongest predictors of whether you're likely to self-harm or commit suicide in a prison is your previous history in terms of, so if you've tried it before, if you've tried it in the community, it's most likely to carry on into prison. And unfortunately, Style did have a spate of suicides, but believe me, I worked, just sort of jumping ahead because we were chatting before they started. I worked on H wing at Liverpool, which was the detox wing, and it was full of them all on act documents, and you'd be like dragging them by the get back inside you, and then you'd be like shouting at the staff saying, "Who's unlocked him?" Because we'd have like 100 cleaners out. And the landing had
all grafters.
And the landing had still been minging, and you'd be like, "Give us that fucking mop, get him back in his cell." So that's the laugh you could have with men, you see. It was a bit more, a bit more
our
like,
asses weren't they?
Honestly, staff, don't let him out again. But with at Style, You'd have the odd one like that.
Yeah.
But generally, you were talking, this is the heavy shit. This is the ones that open their veins. These are the ones that when they ligature, they're not banging on the door or they're not shouting for help, or they might press the bell, then run and ligature. But it takes literally seconds for someone to go unconscious. And what happens if you don't make that bell in time? You've got a dead person on your hand.
It's a risk, isn't it?
Yeah. So this one day, and I'll never forget my principal officer's response. So just for explanation, it went prison officer, senior officer, and then principal officer. So your principal officer was, I mean, you know this, it's just for your audience really. Your principal officer was the highest uniform rank. So he was sort of in charge of the day-to-day stuff of the wing. So I was on my own on my landing. And what tended to happen is, and I understand now, and I'll probably go on to talk about it later, a lot of these women had personality disorders, coupled with drug use, depression, anxiety, probably just lost their kids, you know, had most of them been through some sort of abuse, physical, mental, emotional, sexual, you name it. A lot of them worked on the streets. They had the worst combination of things that could happen to them. And sometimes, like we know, it's like with kids, any attention's good attention, isn't it? Yeah. So, you know, there's that saying, isn't there, in prison, the ones that kick and scream and bang the loudest get the most attention, don't they? So I was on my own on this landing, and there was a girl that was really high risk on one side and a girl that was really high risk on the other side. So they were both on 15-minute observations. So you're supposed to stagger them so that they don't. So you're supposed to do, let's say, 4 observations in an hour, not every 15 minutes, because every 15 minutes becomes predictable. Therefore, they know when you're coming, so they'll do whatever they have to do, knowing that you'll be there right on the dot. So I tried to vary them a little bit. So one started ligatory. So I went into her cell, and she was attached to the window bars at the back. And I go to her, and I'm on my own, but I know I can deal with it because we had like fish knives, I think, at that time. So these fish knives are like hook knives that can go underneath a very tight ligature and then slice it off. Before that, we were relying on blunt ligature scissors. Do you know what I mean? You'd be easier cutting it with a toothpick than you would some of them. So she's punching and kicking me and trying to get, and I'm just like, I'm shouting at her, just saying, for fuck's sake, let me get you down, let me get you down, let me get you sorted. Cut the ligature off, called the nurse, she's fine. Right, put back behind the door, I'll keep an extra eye on you, don't worry. Next one started, the opposite one started, because she'd seen the nurse and she'd seen me and we'd been in a cell. So she starts then, miss, get to the cell, she's hanging. She's doing exactly the same. And I'm not joking, I spent probably 4 hours going from one to one to one to one to one, cutting them down with no extra staff there. Maybe occasionally another member of staff be coming, you know, passing by or would help me.
That's crazy, isn't it? Wow.
And, you know, the nurses were getting pissed off. I was getting physically exhausted. Do you know what I mean? I'm sick of like being punched and kicked every time I'm trying to help someone. And eventually, I think I shut both doors and I just started I just burst out crying on the landing. Now, I didn't often cry at work in the early days. In the later years, I cried a lot and, you know, didn't hide it. But you had to be tough. You had to, you know, you didn't cry in front of anyone back then. And I just started crying and all the staff sort of came round me. And I think they realised how affected I had been by this mental and emotional, like, I can feel like the emotion now, just trying to help people. But I was angry at them. I was mad at them both. But it's only sort of later on in life with a better understanding of mental illness and a better understanding of my own mental health that I realised they were ill. They were really ill. But I kept them alive. Anyway, so my principal officer comes on the landing. He was from Liverpool. Not going to mention his name. He's not in the job anymore. He came on the landing. He went, oh, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Just go home and have a glass of wine. I said, well, can I leave early? I'm like a little bit like, I'm exhausted and I'm crying and I don't want to do tea, you know. He said, you'll be fine. Just stay on till tea. And I'm like, but that's when my shift finishes anyway. Yeah. So he's like, his response was like, just go home and just have a glass of wine, which is like the worst thing you can say to someone who is a functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
But that was sort of two sort of really bad incidents, but I could name hundreds, fires, floods, going in with, mufti kit on, and
I know exactly, where you're coming from with most of those stories, because I've been in,
you've seen it.
I've seen it. I was like, I think the worst incidents I ever come across was Stafford, HMP Stafford years ago.
I heard some bad things about
Stafford.
Stafford was it a YO at the time, a young offenders?
No, not when I was there. It was
that was Stoke Heath.
Yeah, Stoke Heath. Stafford was it was like the bottom of the barrel for the Cat C's.
Yes.
When you went to a Cat C, when you were in, you're a bit of an unruly, from Bolton. I went to Stafford, and it was like Cat C's normally get to wear their own clothes.
Yeah.
We didn't.
Yeah.
It was prison attire, and you're on a wing where you've got to earn the right to come off that wing by going up a level.
Right.
Landing 1, landing 2, landing 3, landing 4, and then you move on to normal location.
Right.
But it was like snakes and ladders. You're up and down. Something gets said, you're back on the trees. You've got to spend a month there.
Month?
Yeah. So you do.
Not even a week?
No. So it's a month. So it took me like 4 months initially to get to the landing 4.
I'm not laughing at you. I just know what the service is like.
So it was 4 months, and I was up there. I was glad I was up there for about 2 months.
Mm.
And it was incredible, because I was on the 4th landing. I was facing the city centre.
Right.
The wall's there. The wall is my cell window, right? And there's the wall. And every night, right, without fail, you'd bang a line out the window, right? It'd go over the wall, right? No shit. It'd go over the wall, and you'd get a parcel tied to the end of that. It was fucking bizarre. And you'd pull it up slowly, and you'd ask the person who tied the parcel on to give it a shout when it gets 6 inches from the top. I always remember that shout. Lad, tell me when it's 6 inches from the top. No! And then you'd yank it, and it'd come right over the barbed wire. You'd pull it in, and I'd be getting parcels of heroin, parcels of fucking cannabis. No, it wasn't mine. It wasn't mine.
Yeah.
I was good at fishing, right? I could fish, but I'd always get a sorter. So I didn't want to leave. It was F-wing in staff. I didn't want to leave. And when I did, it was like,
But don't you think now, in the times of like mobile phones and drones and stuff like that, what a different world it is?
Yeah.
Because like I said, we used to be on exercise and we used to see lines swinging, and you'd be radioing through to the wing to say such and such is throwing a line to such and such, and we'd run in and try and catch it. But now it's all like the drones are so precise, they can actually deliver to specific cell windows. You know what I mean? And then, like I say, the mobile phones that come up where. Yeah. I'm like, how did they get them up there? But yeah, it's.
I seen an experience, and I shared this with Sam, right, in Stafford, right. When you were talking about fires, there was a guy that over dinner had locked him, had barricaded his cell.
Yeah.
His pad mate was asleep. He'd had a Dear John, allegedly, off his girl.
Right.
So he was going through a few feelings. He'd set fire to the bin in the toilet.
Oh,
right.
I think I know this one. Go on.
And he'd barricaded in the cell, and I was like, I was above but across, and my first thinking was someone's making toast. Right. That's what you think. Someone's burning and making toast over dinner.
Yeah.
I think you think it's aims to be bad, but early to be making toast, you know?
Yeah.
Bangers here. Next, there's plumes of smoke, right, coming under my door. It's becoming really thick, and then the bells are going. All doors are open. I can hear loads of activity on the landings. And then our doors flew open. Mr. Mason, I remember him well. Out! Get to the yard. Go, follow it. I was like, what's going on here? We all got out. We all on the exercise yard. The shell, we can hear banging on this door. They're trying to get through. There's plumes of smoke coming out of this window, because we were watching it.
Yeah.
Next thing, the fire brigades are coming in. There's an helicopter landing in the football field. Where there must be about 200 inmates standing on this yard, waiting. Obviously he died, couldn't get in. Both of them were dead, I believe. And that was horrific. And obviously I've seen like a lot more and a lot worse in different countries.
Yeah.
But as for like yourself, I mean, it must be really like, because we can just laugh it off.
I know, and I think that's what I've done quite you know, I've done Lab Bible, I've done Sean Atwood, I've done quite a lot of things, and people think that I'm laughing at people's mental health, or I'm laughing at, you know, I don't know about you, but it was the only way we could get through it. Conditions were shit. Life was shit. You were doing 14 hours. I mean, you know, you're in a shit situation doing sort of bang up and, you know, having to graft and do what you've got to do just to get through. We were doing 14-hour shifts, sometimes night, getting lunch or tea, rolling around in piss, shit, blood, evacuating people, doing all the rest of it. If, you know, I said about not crying, if we let ourselves give in to our emotions, I would never have lasted, ever. And I had to compartmentalize that aspect. Later on in years, it manifested as unhealthy drinking. There was probably still a bit of culture of the sort of prison club and drinking sort of when I first joined the prison service. But it was part of my daily routine to come home, have a drink, forget about it, go to sleep, get up, carry on.
It's like the army.
Yeah.
Similar. It's like regimental stuff in a routine.
Yeah. And it is. And it's not that, you know, I remember I had, and I don't generally respond to sort of comments unless I feel like it's really important that people understand, you know, where we're coming from. And I've had my own mental health. I didn't admit for years and years and years. I didn't admit that I had a mental health issue. I kept it hidden. I kept it suppressed. I was doing out of work. I was doing all sorts of really dangerous, impulsive things that were, you know, that could have killed me. And yet I was going into work and I was all fine. And, you know, it's important that people know that we are ordinary people. Same as you know, we're same people in different circumstances. That's all it is. And never, you know,
I like that, same people in different circumstances.
That's all it is. We're humans. And I think that's why I like to think I did as well as I did in the prison service, because if you'd have been in front of me, you'd have been Billy and we'd be chatting like this. I might have been telling you you're a knobhead and stop grafting, but I'd give you another chance, say, right, I'll let you out again because I'm rooting for you, because you're a nice guy and I want you to do well and I want, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's sort of that empathy side of it.
Was missing, yeah.
But yeah, so it, you know, I'm never laughing. Sometimes I'm laughing at the situation. I mean, sometimes the situations were just ridiculous. So ridiculous that you didn't know, you know, you couldn't do anything but laugh. You know, and also a lot of things, as a prison officer, you can't affect change. You can't change anything. I can't change the wing routine. I can't take you off a 2052 SH. Quite often, I can't give you permission to come out of your cell. And there is a line management structure and a long, tiresome line management structure, as you probably know, trying to work up from the ones to fours, and you know, it's got to go through a senior officer and a principal officer. And that's the reason I became a governor, because I saw shit things happen to prisoners. I saw bad management. I've been on the receiving end of bad management. And yes, don't get me wrong, initially the money was a big incentive. Later on in life, it was just, you know, it wasn't worth getting out of bed for. But, you know, in early days, and that was the reason I became a governor and started working my way through the ranks, because I thought, well, I'm doing fuck all here as a prison officer. I kept failing my senior officer exams. So I'm like, I think I'm relatively good at the job, but I obviously just can't pass an exam to save my life. And I'd almost given up. And I remember a guy, one of my senior officers, and he took me to one side and he went, give it one more shot. Just give it one more shot and you'll do it. And I remember exactly where we sat, and he was such a nice guy, and he really believed in me, and I did it and I got it. And then, because I thought that's the only way I can start to make a difference, is by getting in. Now, it wasn't well thought of by my mates who were prison officers. My mates who were prison officers were just like, it was like I turned into a grass or something. Do you know what I mean? It was horrible. It was like, you know, you get ostracised.
Look, I know exactly. When I got a job as a cleaner, my last sentence, and a mentor. Felt like the enemy.
Yeah, they look at you like you've turned on the staff side. Yeah,
get on him. He's a cleaner, or he's a gym orderly, or he's anything to do with a little bit more of a responsible job,
status or something like that. Yeah,
you know. And I was fucking hell, lads, you can't even win for losing. I've been down a block all my life.
Yeah,
I've been in and out of different institutions. I've always been on basic. I've never reached standard. Never mind.
Sorry, I'm not laughing. It's just so different from this person I see sat in front of me today.
But I'd never reached standard. Standard. I was always basic Billy. They used to call me. Yeah, it's basic Billy. Right, never had no telly. Everyone was having tellies and everything. I had no canteen. I was on CC. Everything was like just nothing for me. So this time round, I went from standards to enhanced, and a mentor. Fucking, I'm doing all right here. Then we'll give it a cat C. We'll give it a cat T. Oh, fucking cat T. I've had a cat T in over 20 years.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah. And then, you feel as if, like, fucking hell, he's a snitch, him. You know what I mean? So I know exactly where you're coming from, but it's like you said, different people, different circumstances. Same people, different circumstances. So your circumstances there, now you're, getting promoted to governor.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well,
what happened there?
Initially, so when you go from to get senior officer, you have to go through exams. To get principal officer, you don't. You just have to pass you just have to do an application form and pass an interview. So I thought, I'll fucking smash this. I can smash an interview. I can do a good application form. Always got the interview based on my application form. Thought, I'll smash these interviews. Oh my God. It was like a failed actress knocking on every single door asking to be let in. I was dead young. So I was like 26 when I was going for, and a 26 female PO in the job was like unheard of unless you were on fast track. And I failed that as well. So I'm knocking on all these doors. I'm asking for jobs. I'm not kidding. I've sat in interview rooms where they've tutted at me, huffed at me, looked in the corner of the room, not even looked me in the eye,
not even acknowledging
me. So I thought, bloody hell, if they're treating staff like that, how are they treating prisoners? And I remember I went to Preston for a walk around, and I thought I went to university in Preston. I thought, fuck me, it's grim in Preston. I don't want to go back there.
Being there, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's fucking grim, innit? And then on the same day, I'd already been for my interview at Liverpool, and I thought I'd done relatively well. And I'd had a walk round, one of the governors or POs, you'd always see someone new walking around, oh, we're coming for a job here. And they'd honestly, everywhere I'd went, they'd taken the piss out of me. We'd had some really good banter. The prisoners were dead respectful and dead interested, dead keen to know, are you from Style? What's that like? What are the women like? And I just had this feeling of, this is like a second home. This is like a second home to me. And it did become like a second home because I spent fucking hours in that jail. I spent more hours there than I did at home. So I'd just come out of Preston and I got the phone call that out of 10 people, I'd come top. And I was just ecstatic. But I knew I had a battle on my hands. There was, I don't think, any female on the senior management team. So your senior management, so your governors and above. I think there was one senior officer, one female senior officer, and I had a smattering of female prison officers. And I started, and they prided themselves on... They said, the last female PO, she came here, she lasted 3 months before she ran off in tears. And I thought, well, if I can make it to 3 months, then I know I've done some good. But I was lucky. There was some, I don't want to say the names on camera, but you'll know exactly the same people because they were they were POs at the same time as you were, old school, but decent guys, took me under their wing and like shielded me. They like I feel a bit emotional. Why am I feeling emotional talking about this? But they saw what I was like. They saw I was keen. They saw I wasn't a pushover. They saw that I was willing to work hard. I was willing to get stuck in. I wasn't just there like some little fucking princess, like just to ponce around and chat shit with people. I was there to get my head down and to work hard. And yeah, they protected me and, had my back every day that I worked with them. So I used to work nights, evenings, weekends, stuff like that. And I can hand on heart say some of the happiest times I've ever had at work were in Liverpool prison. And there was one guy that I used to work with, PO. And I've never, you know, when you get those belly laughs that you can't stop, the tears are streaming down your eyes. And I used to work with him at a weekend, and I used to look forward to it. I used to bounce out of bed at 5 o'clock and come into work at 6 o'clock. I'd get on the tannoy, you know, the centre at Liverpool.
Yeah.
You know, there's a tannoy. And I'd get on it and I'd sing good morning to the lads, and they'd be like, oh, fucking hell, Miss D's on, or Kenny. They used to call me Kenny. Obviously, because my second name, they'd say, oh, fucking hell, Kenny's on, or whatever. And I'd be, but because I was always up for a laugh, get job done. I tell you what, on my weekends, never had any incidents. Me and this guy, we never had any incidents. Governors didn't need to get involved. We'd be round the landings. We'd be chatting to people. I remember one cleaner on A-Wing once showing us how he could do the splits. The man had walking sticks, but he could do the splits. Just like, what?
They might know him.
But yeah, just some really happy times. And again, I had a bit of I had my odd bits of conflict with the staff. And I think with the staff, they were a bit more reticent. You come from Style, not with a reputation personally, but, oh, you're from Style. What do you know about a male jail? Well, actually, I've probably managed more incidents than you've had hot dinners, mate. Do you know what I mean? And I was never afraid to get stuck in. You know, I'd never shy away from a scrap. You know, I wouldn't, you know, I'd never see my colleagues hurt or anything like that. And I think once people got used to me, and like, I'm still in contact with these people now, you know.
Brilliant.
They still message me, how are you, Hull? Or Queen, they used to call me, or H. They all had some little nickname for me. And it just, you know, when I talk about my time, and I suppose I'm talking about Liverpool more because obviously, you know, you're from here, and just driving here today brought some memories through. And yeah, just some really happy times there. I was still a functioning alcoholic, but I had some really, really happy times.
But you know what? There was a lot of functional, let's say, alcoholics, because when I first went to Walton, right, it was the big house. And you know, you got the notorious Mufti squad, minimal. They called it minimum use of force in these events. Yeah,
minimum. Right.
They just twisted you up and fucking give you a good hiding. Now, I remember, right, I was 22, young kid, and you remember the Ramblers. I don't know if you remember the Roberts Ramblers. You could have sent in. You could have a radio brought up.
Oh yeah.
You could have your radios brought up. You can't have them now. You got to get them from a catalogue or something.
Yeah.
But you can have radios and Walkmans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I remember this officer said I could use the phone after I pleaded with him to call, you know, a family member.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, get on the phone. Don't be mentioning radios or whatever. First, that's what I want to fucking use the phone for. You know what I mean? So I'm on the phone and talking away. He said, well, I've been told not to mention radios. Right. That didn't go down too well. I'm in my cell. Right over there, he comes in the cell with two other staff members, and he was pissed. You could smell
pissed
it.
Off, yeah.
You know when he was pissed, baby.
Yeah.
You could. He was ill. And he had me around the throat, and he was near me and I was scared.
Yeah.
I was scared. I didn't know whether, you know, I couldn't really retaliate because I was only small as well at the time, and I was just landed, so I wasn't in the best shape physically.
Yeah.
You know. But they were the kind of experience, and I'm not going to be honest, I respect that more than I do. I respect them now more than I do the officers that are in the service today.
There's a culture now
weird,
of staff grass on, and I'm not saying, right, if you see, and I do this, if I saw an officer really crossing the line, I'd pull them up. I would pull them up. But I'd pull them up on the quiet and say, don't ever fucking do that again in my presence, or this will happen. But there's a culture now amongst staff because they've made staff so fucking scared of getting into trouble themselves. Like, they tried it with me once. They said, because I'd been aware that a member of staff had come to me and divulged something very personal, something very bad that had happened at work. And because I hadn't told management that I could be under investigation, I went, no, my friendship comes before management. What she told me does not affect anyone else. It doesn't affect the security of the prison or anything like that. So don't, basically don't threaten me. But there's a really weird culture now. I mean, the drinking, unfortunately, it's very, very sad. A lot of staff at Liverpool have lost their lives through drink, and it is tragic. I had one officer, and I used to send him to sleep it off in one of the cells. We tried with these guys. We really tried. Some of them, like you say, were old school.
They were really old, yeah. But like I said then, I respect like someone come and threaten you like that, rather than like what
go and write you up behind your back, and then before you know it, you're being taken to the seg and you don't know what for, because no one's had the arsehole to tell you.
Smiling at you, no, you're all right. And then next thing you've got written like something written up about you, and you're standing in front of the governor, you're down a block, and you're thinking, what the fuck? Yeah. The smiling assassins. I'd rather you be straight in my face. And sometimes you could have, the longer I went on, the more like courage, we had to stand up for myself, and I'd fight them. I would never win. You'd never win. I'm fucking always getting, smashed to pieces. But
they were the ones that I remember at Manchester, we had the ones that there's certain famous prisoners that are on YouTube now and stuff like that. And you knew you were going to have a scrap. You knew. I mean, not me personally, because they wouldn't send me in to some of these people, but you knew you had a team ready. You had another team ready, and then you had a few spare officers, because you thought, we will get there.
There's an handful, isn't
we'll get there eventually, but he's going to give us a bloody good go before we get him under control. Do you know what I mean?
Did you ever come across Darren and Danny G?
Yeah.
Because I know Danny well.
Yeah.
Right, and I've never met Darren. But I knew Danny was a handful as a young kid, because and he was in Walton when I was there, and he was like started up. Yeah. So he came in when he was 20. Yeah. And that was, I'll tell you when that was in 2003.
Because he ended up in the Cat A estate, I think, didn't he?
He did. He ended up getting he got an IPP.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't know what happened, because I'd been released from prison. I'd got my shit together. Yeah. I got myself into a recovery program. I left the country for 3 months, which turned into a 5-year journey of fucking ups and downs again, because I never dealt with what was going on here. And in all that time, obviously life goes on back home. People still are in and out of that jungle called prison. And I heard he got an IPP. I don't really know where he is, what he's up to. And I often think, because you hear his name getting shouted about on YouTube, and his brother's quite active. Which, he's doing what he's doing, and, he's getting a message out, whether it's ambivalence or not, it's still there. So, did you ever have any experience with that?
With Danny, he landed, so I was in charge of the block, the SEG at Manchester. So you can imagine Cat A prisoners, some of them, like you say, IP prisoners did, and I'm sorry for all my swearing, folks. IPP prisoners did not give a fuck, because they weren't. So just I don't know if you've explained this before, indeterminate public protection prisoner. So this was from, do you remember the old 3 strikes and you're out? Yeah. It replaced that, didn't it, effectively? But instead of like keeping you for a specified amount of time, basically said, until you've reduced your risk, you're staying in prison for life. Now, some of these...
99 years.
Some of these hadn't committed murder, hadn't committed rape, hadn't committed, offences against a person even, and yet because they'd committed several serious offences, but the problem was the prisons were not giving them the opportunity to rehabilitate. So if you say you're, not you personally, but, say someone is in for domestic violence, they do courses for domestic violence, but the waiting list is 5 years long. Well, how pissed off are you going to be if you're thinking, I need to get out, but I've got to wait 5 years just to get on a course, and then another 2 years before I get a parole review, and then I might get knocked back. So we were rammed with IPP prisoners who did not give a fuck, because they thought, I ain't getting out anyway, so it doesn't matter. So we always had our hands full on the SEG. And Danny came on the SEG, and it was like, now I knew some girls back in Style that had known Danny, and I wasn't given a very good impression of him, but we're talking Danny years ago. Yeah. I'd never met him, obviously. I'd heard his reputation. I'd heard that he could rip apart a cell in 30 seconds. I've heard that, you know, you'd have 12 staff taking him on and et cetera, et cetera. So I was dreading it. I was thinking, this is my seg. This is like, and even though we had like bad times, I like to think, again, I had a really good bunch of staff. I'd go around and see the prisoners every single day. And it was just, it was a good environment despite the challenging prisoners. And when they said, oh, Danny G's, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. Because I was like, you know yourself, once someone's smashed up a seg cell, it's out of use.
Yeah.
Well, where do you put someone who's kicking off then if they're up on the wing? It's just a nightmare. It's like playing chess. So I was expecting hell on earth. And we ended up getting on really well. And we ended up having a sort of...
Sometimes the name comes before.
Yeah. And it's like people would say, did you work with Bronson? Did you do this? Did you do that? And I was like, no, I never did that. And it's people think that these people they have this monstrous reputation and think that they're going to be monsters inside, when actually they're not.
And did you get on well with him?
Yeah. I mean, he was always trying to get one over on me, but I was too like it was like the phone calls and the clothes and the can I have this and can I have that, and the problem is, well, the problem for me, when you're on the seg, every seg prisoner has to see a governor every single day, and that's so we can check that they haven't been battered, given for, you know, that they've been given food, given water, that everything in the cell's working, have they got any issues? But what it does is it gives the prisoner an excuse then to bypass the staff, not give the staff chance to sort out the problem. So if the light's not working, for example, a prison officer can sort that out. Do you know what I mean? Don't need a governor to make a phone call to someone to say, can you come sort a light out? But Danny would always make a beeline for me. And then when other governors went down, he'd be like, I've spoken to Mr. Daglish, and because people knew I was a bit of a softie, I would never give anyone more than they were entitled to. But I am, you know,
you're approachable.
Yeah.
And you get them officers that are approachable.
And I'd stand and chat I found like just chatting to him about just day-to-day stuff. So I always got on quite well with him, and cross fingers, or fortunately, touch wood, he never damaged my cell, and he was never wrapped up or restrained or anything. And I think, like you say, you get to a point in life where you just think, this has got to end now. Yeah. I mean, when I worked at Manchester towards my end of the time there, I did a lot with people in recovery. And there were a lot of people that were recovering addicts that had spent years and years in jail that turned out to be the best mentors, the best people to help turn others around. My experience, I don't know if you agree, is that age is a big factor, because you get to a point and you just think, do I want to be doing this when I'm 50? Do I, you know, I'm missing out on so much of life.
With youth comes that arrogance, you know, you got an air of arrogance. And I myself, I really, like, I got to a point where, and I was lying on a top bunk in Stafford. I was 25 years old, right? And I said to myself, you know, life's not getting any easier, and I'm not getting any younger. And I felt like it was getting year after year after year, but I couldn't get off that cycle. I didn't know there was a way out. Yeah, you know,
I think that's it. It's knowing where to go to, and like you say, that arrogance or pride is stopping you from asking for help.
So, do you think Danny G will ever be released from that IPP sentence, because he's been in for an awful long time now, hasn't he?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I'm not sure, and I've not been sort of up to date on the criminal justice side of things, but I thought they were going through the courts to scrap them altogether.
Yeah, but I heard that also, but I also heard that those that were currently on IPP sentences were not being scrapped. They were, because they'd been sentenced prior.
Yeah, but I think they were then given a target date. I think the prisons that had them, so you'd
a tariff.
Yeah, you'd have a tariff like as if you were a life sentence prisoner. So if you, even as an IPP prisoner, you could have a 3. Oh God, I knew this one guy, very short in stature, shall we say, and he had a very tragic.
Scouser?
No, I think he's from Ireland.
Okay.
No. But when I say short in stature, I mean very short. And it's very sad because he'd been abused by Catholic priests. and he had a vendetta against the Catholic Church. And he'd gone round and set some nuisance fires. So he was a repeat arsonist. No one had ever got hurt. Yes, there'd been damage to the buildings, but he never went in the daytime. He was not
endangering life.
Yeah, he didn't want to hurt someone. So he got an IPP sentence.
Arsonist.
3 years.
Yeah.
3 years. That was the minimum he had to serve. So it's the prison's duty to make sure we have done everything we need to do rehabilitation wise. So when he's at that 3 year point, he might not get out. He might have to do another 12 months before next parole, but there's an end. There's an end in light.
Yeah.
So my understanding, and if I'm wrong in any way, please people tell me, is that the ones that are still IPP, there was a massive push around 2016, 2017 to put the resources into the prisons or move the prisons. So there was a massive movement of IPP prisoners to go to the jails where they needed to go to get out. Now, unfortunately, it's like Charles Bronson. He's probably a threat to no one now.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's an old man.
Well, he's been given life, hasn't he? And he's never actually killed anyone.
Yeah,
it's never been documented. It's never like you said, raped or anything.
Yeah.
He's kidnapped a few.
Yeah,
and
he's taken people hostage, and he's not been very nice. But what you've got to think of what threat they pose now to society. But unfortunately, the prison service, the probation service, the parole service, everyone, and to some extent, it is true that your past behaviour very, very much predicts your future behaviour. Yeah. But you get to a point where you think these people have got to be let out at some point, but everyone's shit themselves because no one wants to put their name. Yeah. No one would put their name on that piece of paper to say Danny G can get out. No one will put their name on that paper to say Charles Bronson will get out. That's it.
Why do you think that is? Because I know a friend of mine, Paul Arden, he got an 8-year tariff on his IPP and he got out on the 8th.
Right. Well, this guy, I didn't finish that story. The little guy, he was 10 years over tariff.
Wow.
Because there is nothing for arsonists. There is nothing for, and he was quite antisocial. He was quite unpleasant to deal with. But he'd been horrifically abused. Surely we should be giving him some trauma counselling, doing some good, not just locking. And his behaviour was really challenging. 10 years. He'd not even made it to a Cat C. No. And every time we did get him to a Cat C, within a week they sent him back because he was too challenging. But these people are traumatised. That's what we should be focusing on. That's what will help people rehabilitate. So you're either not a lucky person, but you've either got the wherewithal or the resilience to do it like you did. You said it comes from something within to find that help, to access it, to change yourself, or you just left languishing.
Exactly. And my cousin, I don't know if you ever come across him, Stephen Johnson. His name was Judder. He was IPP. He actually died in an institution May last year on his birthday.
Oh God.
Like he was I think he was used really he was like a prison assassin.
Right.
He would go around and he'd be like,
and he'd be the one doing it on behalf of the other.
But he was I think he had no fear. He was a heroin addict. Most of his life he was in prison and he got IPP, I think, doing 16 years, over his tariff majorly. He wasn't getting out anytime soon. And, and that's his behaviour was currently still actively doing that, taking drugs, taking spice. Spice. Yeah, targeting people with blades. Yeah. And that's where you're going to go. So the likes of Charles Bronson, Danny G, anyone else who's in that category,
it's got that reputation.
So how many people in the UK have got a reputation like Charles Bronson?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
that are still locked up. You've got Wormsley. Is it not?
Richard Maudsley.
Sorry, Maudsley.
But didn't he get a full life tariff? Because there's about now in the whole prison estate, and I'm rounding this up or rounding this down, of about 90,000 men and women. Yeah. Obviously, probably about a while back there was 6,000 women. But out of that whole amount, there's only about 70. Again, that's an average, about 70 prisoners doing a whole life tariff.
Yeah, and Rose West is going to be one of them.
She's one of them. Yeah, Joanne Dennehy, she's another one.
Did you ever come across Rose West?
No, thankfully.
Yeah, thank God.
I think there's something, and I've said this before, I think there's something particularly brutal and unnatural about women that can do that to other women. I mean,
especially at their own kids as well. I mean,
and I'm not saying it's not acceptable for a man to do it to a boy or a man to do it to a girl. I'm not saying that at all. And
the maternal kind of instinct.
Yes, that's it. It's like
you're supposed to be a maternal. That connection.
Well, even gone. With prisoners, I had maternal sort of, I want to look after you. When you got someone sobbing in front of you who's got a heartbreaking story, and you know, I know what I'm like. I'm super empath. It takes all my energy not to cry. Not to just say, come here, I'll look after you. It'll be all right. You can't do that. But it's like, I have a little boy now, say little, he's 12. I would die for him. I remember telling him once, I said, if we were in a plane, because he doesn't get it. And I remember saying to him once, if we were in a plane that was crashing and there was one parachute and there was me and you, I'd give you that parachute all day long. And he was like, huh? I said,
baffled.
Yeah, he's just like, I don't understand. He said, could we not go on it both together? I was like, not with my weight, love. We'd plummet to the ground. But yeah, it's that, I know that maternal instinct in me is so strong. It's, without a blink of an eye. And I never thought I'd feel like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I used to really care about people, but
kids change you, don't they? It's a different ball game when it comes to children. You can feel quite vulnerable at the same time, and I get it. So going forward now, because you've got stories galore.
Stories, yeah.
Walton Prison, probably your best time, as a governor as well.
Yeah.
What was that like as a governor?
As a governor, do you know what?
Did you make any changes that you feel that were positive?
I think so, yeah.
Well, let's hear about them, because I wasn't.
I wish we'd been up there at the same time. I'd have been on your case.
You would have seen me definitely standing in front of you, and you'd have probably been giving me CC or, remission, random piss tests or something going on. Billy Moore, you're back here again. What the fuck is up with you? I'd be shipped out to some.
Do you know what though? When I used to do adjudications, the internal prison, so they're like a mini court, aren't they? So you have the governor sat at one end of the table, then you have staff reading evidence, then you have staff sat behind the prisoner in case he kicks off or whatever. And
it's fucking bizarre,
they soon clocked onto me. So had I had my little boy by that point? Yeah. So I went back to Walton as a governor in 2012 from Manchester, and started doing adjudications, and the adjudications it'd be rammed, wouldn't there? They'd always be like 20.
You'll be in one shell.
Yeah. 30 people waiting to come and sit in front of me and plead their case. And word got round that one, I'd always give someone another chance. If you were in front of me, you'd always get another chance, but that was it. The second word got round that if you bring a picture of your dog, a photo of your dog, you're more likely to get a more lenient.
Dog lover.
The dog lover. And then thirdly, if you had kids, well, she's a complete and utter pushover. So obviously I had and you had the ones that are coming with the attitude, proper attitude. And if you give me attitude, you're going to get attitude back. And obviously I had my burly officers that would. And I remember this one guy once, and we were going back and the staff were like, they knew when it was going to kick off, because they knew once I'd lost it, which I never did, but when I lost it, the heads would be in the hands and it'd be like, we're going to be wrestling in a minute. Yeah. And he threw a bit of paper at me or something like that. And I scrambled over the table. I'm like, I'm going to get in. It's like, rolling around the adjudication. Like something out of The Conjuring or something like that. And I'd be like, but my staff would just be like, oh, for fuck's sake, Holly, just deal with them and get her out. But I'd sit and talk to them for ages. So they'd be saying, oh, my girlfriend's pregnant at Fazakerley Hospital, and here's a photo of my little boy. I've heard that you've got a little boy and all this. And I'd be like, all right, well, I'll just give you a warning this time. The staff would be like, fucking hell. I'm like, I know, but... So one of sort of my proudest things that I did, particularly as a governor, you talk about changing things. I was put in charge of public protection and sort of safeguarding, child safeguarding. And I didn't think I had a real passion for it. It was, I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't really know, we did quite some gang stuff as well. As you can sort of be aware that the Liverpool gang scene was sort of like rampant and has been rampant for, quite some time. So public protection, one of my sort of things that I've always been hard on is domestic violence. Domestic violence perpetrators normally get away with it about 9 times before they've got to the police. We had hundreds of people that breached restraining orders, stuff like that. We had children at risk. We did covert monitoring of letters and mail and stuff like that. And it's no disrespect to anyone that had been doing the job previously, but it was part of a massive department. It was just one small area of a massive department, and there was a lot of paperwork that went on, census calculations, and just, but it was one area that had been really under-resourced with no sort of management oversight or focus on it. So I started doing it, and we started getting some really, really good results. And I don't say I never want to say it's a good result to take a child away from its mother or its father, but when that child is in desperate danger of a sex offender father, a drug user mother, and a mother who refuses to cut contact with that to social services, she's saying, oh yeah, we're having no contact with him. Well, previously there was a lack of sharing of information. So we weren't sharing information with the police. They weren't sharing it with us. We weren't sharing it with probation. We weren't sharing it with social services. They weren't sharing it with us. There were no mechanisms for us all to get together and share this information, because it's like pieces of a puzzle, isn't it? And we were at the level where, like I said, you'd have this is just an example, a mother who's saying the child's under a protection order or whatever, saying, not having any contact with him at all. She's been battered by him. He's in prison for battering. He's got a history of sex offences. And she has every intention of letting this man
back into her life. Yeah. And take away... Right, because I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of domestic violence quite easily. It's amazing how I fell into that situation. So there is some understanding there on the part of the woman, but your child comes first. And I knew these were children that were at serious risk. Yeah.
And I put all my energy and my focus into it, and eventually we got audited and we had inspectorates and things like that, and they really praised the work that had been done, because I could evidence it. I could say, right, so I got heavily involved also with the police, local police, doing gang stuff, which I found really interesting, and getting people gate arrested, which they hated me for, armed police on the doorstep and things like that. But, it was all good.
And this is all because of the covert letters that they were sending
out.
Yeah,
and phone calls, or you'd have staff putting in security reports saying they'd heard them overheard them say this, or other prisoners even, and it's not something prisoners don't grasp, that. But if it's a sex offender or someone like that, yes, they are going to, if they think a child's at risk. So quite often we would act on information from the police or social services, and then we'd feed that information back. And what we made sure is that everyone knew what everyone was doing, so that when that person got out, they were locked down so tightly that they weren't going to get back to this. But the women someone would be on a restraining order against a woman, and a woman would be carrying on visiting him in prison, and I'd be like, wait a second, how's she getting through the doors? How's she getting through the doors?
I see now, right, I'll tell you something now, right, Holly. I went to Walton not so long ago, a few years back now. It changed. Now, when I was a young kid and I was in the prison establishments, anyone who'd come in for beating up the bed, or they were wrong uns.
Yeah.
They'd be on numbers.
I know what you're going to say. Yeah. Go on.
Now.
Yeah.
Right. I'm on a landing, right, with about a dozen on the same landing lads who were in for domestic violence.
Yeah.
And no one's saying fucking boo to them. And it's on me bed. She fucking this and that, and she got she attacked me, and you think so? There's a lot of justification for why they are in that prison, right? And I think, mate, you've just like fucking, you've stalked her. Yeah. You've hounded her. Yeah. You've attacked her. You've threatened her. Yeah. You've come in. You go out, right, to get released. Within 28 days, they're back in again.
Of course they are. And I tell you what was the problem. Now with mobile phones, they can harass them without us even knowing about it.
Yeah, it's fucking mad.
So we had to wait for intelligence to come to us that someone had a mobile phone so that someone had a mobile phone so we could act on it and try and retrieve the mobile phone, therefore get the evidence that we needed to extend a restraining order or something like that. But then I see it from the women's side of view, point of view. I've worked with women. I see how codependent they are. Yeah. That some of these women, their lives are have been shattered. And they are going to gravitate towards narcissists and violent people. And because again,
treat them mean and keep them keen. Attitudes, isn't it? You know
yeah.
What I mean?
Yeah. Well, do you know what? One of the things I was saying is I was coming towards the end of my sentence. I mean, sort of midway to coming to the end of my sentence. That's a Freudian slip, isn't it? When I was
you're saving a sentence at the same time.
Life. One of the things that I sort of noticed in the male estate quite early on is that, you talked about getting to Cat C. Because that was where all the spaces were, prisoners that would never have made Cat C years ago were now filling up the Cat C spaces. So the badly behaved ones sort of were expanding in the Cat Bs. So we were then having to push them into the Cat C. So the Cat C started to get a bit jumpier. But one thing I specifically noticed is, like I say, I worked at Walton, nothing, and I had the same at Manchester. I had a few dodgy experiences with prisoners at Cat C at Wymot, and they were just not nice. They were sex offenders, and
there's a lot. Wymot's and Garth are close to each other. Yeah, that's the separation.
And they weren't nice there. But generally, I can say hand on heart that prisoners were so respectful to me. So respectful, particularly Liverpool, because a lot of them, I used to say to a lot of them, I'm going to ring your mum, I'm going to ring your missus, or I'm going to ring your sister, or, they're all terrified of the mums. And I'm like, oh, bloody tell him, And I can say hand on heart, and, got nothing but good things to say about them. But what I did notice towards the end of my service is that the little shits that were coming through were starting to change. So we had people going on normal location, 21-year-olds going on normal location that were in for rape. But we're so brazen and so like, I didn't do it. It was just part and parcel. More and more assaults on women. Again, never heard of.
Just permeating into the system.
Yeah, it was never heard of. Yeah, we got assaulted at Style. Well, that's women on women. That's seen as a fair fight. And yes, I did get involved in restraints with men, but I was never, never felt in that position where, at Liverpool, where I was in any danger. But it just became more. So as you had an influx of newer, younger, inexperienced staff, you had some women that hide behind a uniform and think that they can speak to people like shit, like I used to, until I got the shit kicked out of me. And I thought, remember that bit of humility. And the assault, and like I say, the younger generation are more and more violent, and they don't give a shit. They just think it's a joke. It's it's holiday camp, whatever. And I noticed the attitude towards women was starting to change a little bit, not a lot. But assaults on women were getting, it's
more
kind
common.
of, more common. And I just think it was the climate, whether it's the climate outside, the climate inside the prison. Like I said, I don't know whether it was the quality of the staff coming through, the fact that you could be on a landing. This is like not so long ago, with 6 staff with all under 6 months service.
Yeah.
Where's the older member, like you say, the experienced member of staff there, telling the young ones, wind your neck in, son. Come and have a chat in the office. That are giving the chat. The chat. It's like, you're on my wing now.
There was one solid staff member, female staff member in 2018 who I remember, Miss T. I hope she's out there watching this. She was great, but she was old school.
Yeah.
And she was solid, and she reminds me of you in a way where she was like very supportive.
Yeah.
Would listen, wouldn't tolerate bollocks.
Yeah.
Wouldn't take shit off anyone, but at the same time, there was that balance.
Which is why she probably got the respect from people.
And she got the respect from herself. And some people go, I can't fucking stand there,
Yeah.
Because she'd go to me, you going to the gym? And I go, no, because I never said yeah, because I was cleaning. That she didn't like that.
Yeah.
But you sneak off anyway, you know what I mean? But she was sound. And I've been back to Walton Prison a few times since. Voluntary to go in and do talks and sit down with the inmates and share, a little bit of experience and offer them potentially, a way out.
I was about to say a little bit light at the end of the tunnel. Like, this doesn't have to be your life forever.
And it's I've been on the radio and everything in there and what have you. They've got the eternal prison radio.
Yeah, Walton radio.
People still come out and say, you're on that rolling round telly, talking about you are, but you know what, you helped me and it was inspiring. And because I went back to prison and I should never have went back in 2018. I got diagnosed with cancer. I'd been out of prison for a long time, over a decade. I was working for the NHS. My life had changed. I was in recovery. I had a brief period that engulfed me, and I was back on medication that resulted in me taking street narcotics. I ended up committing a crime.
It's in America. That's massive, isn't it?
I committed a crime, right? And I got arrested, got charged, and it was a burglary, and I got put in prison. Right, and because my record years and years ago, right, over 15 years was burglaries, robberies, thefts. They gave me a strike, right, but they gave me 2.5 years, which was like, I'm standing there, I just cleared cancer by this time. I was back in recovery. I was 5 months out of a rehab, right, back in the community, helping and volunteering and doing like good things, and I'm standing in the Crown Court.
Jesus.
And I'm thinking, I've got this letter, I've got people, recommendations. Look, this guy,
he's turned his life around and deserves a chance.
This was out of character, this moment he's had.
Under extreme stress, physical and mental
and he's
stress.
returned the goods that were stolen, by the way, right? I've returned all this.
Oh, don't. I'm going to feel emotional.
So I'm standing there and I'm thinking, okay, so what's going on? I'm 46, 47 years old by this time, right? I haven't been to prison since I was in my early 30s. Oh. Now, boom, gets has a phone, by the way, on the way. So we'll give me a little phone, a little Zanko.
Did you take it in with you?
Maybe you won't take that, lad.
Did you? Just admit it.
Yeah, I did, yeah. I took it in. I took it to court, put loads of cling around it, and I was like,
oh,
gotta stick that where the sun don't shine. But then I didn't expect to go to prison.
No.
And the judge went, 2.5 years.
I bet you just thought you fucking...
I had the bag with me because, you're
just
always...
in case,
just in case, just a few clothes and that. And I went and I was fucking gutted. And I went in there and I didn't even recognise any of the staff.
Can I just ask, sorry to interrupt, can I just ask, at that moment, did you think, how are you going to rebuild your life? Because that is just all the work you've done. Yeah. It's just like the rug's been pulled from you.
So, you've been to a rehab that's been paid for by... that's cost thousands of pounds by like producers from this film company because they want to see you, you better yourself. You know that you're worth it. They pay like what, like I mean, it must have been £30,000 to get your shit together. Put money into you. You stand in the dock, you go to bed, you're clean. There's no reason you're not gonna. When you're in that mindset, I thought there's not gonna justify anything Right, goes to prison, a fucking nightmare. Sitting in the cell, I was all shitting. I shame, Mr. Moneypenny.
Literally shitting with that phone up there.
Sitting in this cell. I'm thinking to myself, oh, for fuck's sake, I can't be asked. I got put in with this kid, he couldn't speak English. And it just stunk. The lights were dim. There was no plastic in the windows. It was the beast from the east. It was freezing. There was one blanket on the bed, right, with like more string off it than he was on it, with these yellow sheets. Yeah. I'm thinking, the green anyway. Lime green. That's what I remember. Because they used to be white. You know what I mean? And it used to be anyway, green bed. I think it was orange bedding now. You know what I mean? Orange blankets. But yeah, it was a horrible experience. And the staff recognised this as soon as I come in and approached me. I went, look, 30 days later I was given a job as a mentor. I was an induction mentor.
Yeah, at least they recognised that and didn't treat you like some little dickhead who's just come off the streets or whatever.
They said, look, Bill, we give you, we know that we could see that, the SO was great. They got me a job, clean. I was out the cell all the time, which was great. I didn't. People go, Bill, can you pass this? No, I'm not doing it, mate. Look, I'm not about that no more. Years ago, I'd have been smoking it and passing it.
I mean, the strength it must have taken to, like say, have been through the cancer, been through the rehab, got your life back on track, to have it all ripped away from under you. The strength then it must have taken to not just think, oh, well, I'll have a little.
But this is the bad thing as well, right? Right. They were in the process of releasing a movie about my life, right? So it was in the papers a lot.
Right.
The Liverpool Echo, the Mirror, a lot. Yeah. It was in magazines. It was on the telly.
Yeah.
Right? It was on the news. I had Professor Green coming into Walton Prison doing an interview.
Oh, I like him.
I had the Echo coming. So I had an interview in the visits, like all set up by the staff with Professor Green. He had the Echo coming in, right? Doing it. I had the Independent. Coming in back to back, by the way. Right, I'm a celebrity getting me out of here on the TV while I'm in there, and all the lads know what I'm in for. They can see me in the paper. I'm in the fucking front pages and the centre pages, and it was just like I was known. I was a face. You know what I mean? I'd worked with Stallone. I'd been on the prison roofs. I was an addict. You'd been into recovery. So I had a lot that I'd invested in this new life. And it been, like you said, taken away. And I used that and I utilised it. But you know what, Ollie? I'll tell you straight now. Spent 6 months in Walton. They loved it. I loved it there. I didn't want to leave there. I would have got released from there. But there, I was Cat C and he moved me to Hindley. Fucking,
we would have been at Hindley at the same time together then.
When was you there?
2018 to 19.
Well, I was in there in 2018. And I tell you, when it was about summertime.
Right. I just think I got a job in London then.
You've missed me all the time.
I know, probably everyone. A good thing.
But I went into Hindley and I thought, oh my God, the first prison he ever went to was a YOY. It was Hindley. When I was 16 years old. And it was the last prison that I didn't want to be in. And I went to that Hindley and it was like, okay, the SO in Walton and Miss T said, we'll get you, a drug mentor and role.
Yeah.
On the drug-free wing. Would you like that? Yeah, Sam. As soon as I land there, I get approached by 2 officers. Your name's being put forward. Would you be interested in coming on this way?
Right.
Yeah. Sound. Goes on it. The worst thing that ever happened to me. I set up a recovery meeting upstairs in the room. Right. I was getting notes getting thrown in a box because now I'm getting called. I'm cultivating gang culture. Right. Then I was getting accused of dealing spice. I was thinking, fuck, never even seen it. Never took it in my life. Never participated in that drug. I was getting me pads spun early, like late at night, 11:30. Boom, Germans were bouncing in, flashlights, scanning the pad, having me in the shower, strip search me. I'm like, what the fuck? I've got me Cat D by this time.
Yeah.
But I'm still in a Cat C. So that got security took that off me.
Yeah.
I thought, nah, someone's got this right in for me.
When did you leave Hindley?
I left Hindley in October, but I did get me Cat D.
We've literally, I think I started in October.
In Hindley?
September, October, yeah.
I went, there was a Scouse governor that was there and he was great with me.
Yeah.
Right, he was, all right, lad, what's going on?
I know what you mean.
I said, I need a word with you, mate. I said, look, let's man to man.
Did you have a great
yeah.
freedom? Yeah.
I said, straight talking with me, lad. I said, look, I'll be Cat taken off me. I said, I've got people putting... He said, what's going on? He said, people putting in your name in the box, Bill, saying you're cultivating gang culture, you're dealing spice. We've got no evidence to support these allegations, but we've got to act on it. Right?
Yeah.
I said, look, do you believe? He went, no, I don't believe a word of it. He said, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to security today. I'm going to cat you to a cat D and get you out of here because you know you don't deserve to be fucking getting dragged through the mud for this.
But you're being judged on your previous, like say, you're talking decades ago.
I had fucking like staff looking at me going, whatever. What's trying to tell him?
Yeah, like you're some cat A gangster that's...
I said, mate, right, I'm not here. The only thing we're dealing up them stairs is hugs. We're giving us a bit of love. We're helping people. We're trying to change lives. What the fuck are we... We're not fucking trying to...
I'm not a cat A from Manchester.
What it was, that drug-free wing was not a drug-free wing. There was people making...
It's probably more drugs on there than anywhere else.
And I realised that I was a threat to those that were still dealing, those that were still using, right? And there was a majority of us on there.
Because they weren't genuine, yeah.
And that's what I was trying to put across here. The drug mentors, like, that give you the job going... It's disappointed in you. And you know when you know for the first time...
I know, how frustrating.
The first time in your life, Holly, and you're thinking, I am not having this. I read a book, right?
Yeah.
A second book called Fighting for My Life. And I read about my experience in Walton, Hindley and Thorn Cross. And I read about like the staff, you know, the feelings, the experiences. And I thought... And it became a fucking bestseller.
Yeah.
Nice one,
nice.
by the way.
Have I got a signed copy here today?
So I was like frustrated, but then I got the cat D, and then I thought, okay, that's great. I've reached El Dorado here.
Which one did you go to? Thorn Cross?
Yeah, I got to
El Dorado.
Yeah, and I thought, fucking hell, I wish it was back in fucking Walton.
Oh no.
I prefer Bang Up than I did being like out.
Weird, isn't it?
It was horrible.
Do you know what? I've got a friend who worked as a governor at Thorn Cross, and I was a governor at Walton at the time, and we'd speak to each other occasionally. So, like, if one had absconded from Thorn Cross, they'd be like, "He's come back. Can we send it? Chuck him to you?" Like, yeah, whatever. And he used to ring me, and I'd be like, there'd be fucking bells going off everywhere. There'd be staff running to and from. There'd be like chaos and mayhem on the wings, and he'd be like, yeah, the donkey's just kicked off here. It was that quiet that he had nothing to do. And I was like, can you hear that alarm bell? That's my 10th alarm bell. I really should go to that now. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I know a lot of lads who can't take going from that cellular condition to that environment. It
was really peculiar, you know. But anyway, I've been out, I haven't been back since, and now I feel like I'm more of a like... I you know what, to be fair, right, I've never been clean and off drugs in prison, and for the first time in my life I went into a prison clean
and came out clean.
I came out clean, and I've stayed over 5.5 years now.
That's amazing,
right? And on that note, the phone that I did have, I didn't realise that they had fucking hot seats, right? So I'm like,
boss chair,
yeah. And an old school screw that I knew, right, he was at the reception. He went, oh, Mo, how are you, son? Got to sit in that chair now. And he didn't think I had nothing. I'm going, what the fuck's that, boss? He went, you won't need to worry about that. I was alright, it sounds. What the fuck? Sat down, beep. I went, oh, no way. Jumped off like I had my ass bit, right? I went, whoa. And he looked at me and went, oh, you haven't, have you? I was having what?
You didn't know what it was, the new technology, yeah.
He went, you haven't. I went, no, what are you going on about? He went, try it again. This time, I don't know what, Ollie, I sat, right, never went off. Don't know why. But I just sat right on the edge, but leaned back. Right. And it never went off. I was really, like, grateful. I went back to I never had a charger. I never had any credit for the SIM card. I even got a phone to give them a number. I was like, oh, this is fucking... I ended up getting a work, like, but... Yeah, it was a fucking... So you know, that's the reason you're laughing, because you can identify with...
And the thing is, when we used to catch him in the cells with them, so I'd be say they'd do a cell search with a strip search. I obviously couldn't go in, but there'd be times when you just go in a cell and someone would just pull something out of their ass and hand it to you and you'd be like, whoa, I don't want that. You're all good. You keep it, mate. You're fine. But we've had it before where we've rang the number of someone who's got a phone up their ass and it started vibrating while we've been searching them. Just had it on vibrate. So as he's squatting, this fucking phone's vibrating. And we're like, that's either one thing or another. And we want neither, but we need to take it off. But yeah,
it's a different world now. So right, we're gonna come to the end of this
because we could probably go on for about.
We'll probably come back for a part 2, Ollie.
That would be good.
It will be great. But like on so what is it? Just on the end of like the podcast, what is it that you're doing with yourself these days?
Well, I was diagnosed with mental health condition in 2016, and underwent years of therapy and psychiatric treatment. I ended up being sectioned and I was medically retired out of the prison service, completely lost the plot, tried to take my life quite seriously twice, several hospital admissions, crisis centre, I'm minimising this, by the way. I'm minimising and glossing over it a little bit because I'm sure people don't want to hear about my trials and tribulations. But I had utter mental collapse. And when I mean that, I mean my memory went, my personality went, everything. I lost myself. I was grieving the prison service because as much pressure as it had put on me, I think at that point I'd started to stop drinking. And drinking's fantastic at masking things, isn't it? Yeah. And I stopped taking my medication, thinking, well, it's not doing any good anyway. So I stopped taking my medication. So I think a combination of not drinking, not taking my medication. And I had the worst crash. I was hospitalised. They wouldn't let me out. I thought I'll go in there, be all right, get out in a couple of days. Yeah. And they kept me in there over Easter, which is like mine and my little boy's special time together. And I was devastated. On the anniversary of that, I tried again. And I've had to face up to a lot of shit that's gone on. And I realised the shit that, like I say, we've talked about laughing stuff off. I think you carry a lot of stuff with you. So my focus now is my mental health is still a significant priority, but there's a couple of things that really, really give me joy. One of them is yoga. I'm big into my yoga. I coach at my local Thai boxing gym. It's like a family, it's lovely, and it's something that I'm really good at. I thought I was never good at anything. I was always just good enough. That's how I always felt. I either felt that I wasn't good enough. I've spent all my life thinking I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not any of these things. But this is something that I know I'm good at. So I've got a real passion for. My other passion is horses and animals and stuff like that. But that's a side note. So sort of I focus on the yoga side of things. I really enjoy doing the podcast because it's really nice for me to, one, get my story out there and for people to sort of have a better understanding. Like, who would have thought you would be sat opposite me, ex-prison governor, and we could talk like this? Because there's such a misconception of probably what you've been like, what I was like, you know, and you know, I want people to understand how hard it is to get where you've got, how hard it was for me to, one, get where I got, but then two, you know, the effect that it had on my mental health. And I'm not just blaming the prison service, there was lots of other factors as well. So I focus on my yoga. We're in the process of renovating my house, which is okay. If there's anyone from DIY SOS out there, please get in contact. I'll even leave my mobile number at the end of this. And yeah, I'm also just quickly mention, so you'll see the t-shirt that I'm wearing, local company called Dead Angry, who provide clothing. They, two lovely people called Chris and Mel, they come to one of my yoga groups. Brilliant. And I've had a little thought about some business that I can do with them, something based around yoga, you know, yoga designs and yoga mats and things like that, because I've spent too long doing nothing. I'm starting to gradually recover now. It takes a long fucking time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Takes a lot. You think it's going to happen like that?
It's a process. It's a long process.
Yeah,
as well.
it's a long process. So, I'm right.
But you will recover.
Yeah, I'll get there. I know it. Not drinking has a massive effect on, a massive positive effect. I am on a lot of medication still, but it seems the right mix. I'm actually writing a book myself.
Brilliant.
With all the gruesome details in it.
I think it'll do really well.
I like to think it's funny. Funny, sad, little bit of true crime in there and a little bit of stuff. So hopefully I'll get that done by the summer. And yeah, I just spend time working on myself. I volunteer. So I'm also, I've just started volunteering, teaching yoga to ex-prisoners and homeless people. They were going to pay me. And I was like, are you serious? I'm not going to take from a charity, which is something, which is close to my heart, which is what I'm passionate about.
Brilliant.
So I did that last week with 4 homeless guys who were all addicted to alcohol. And one turned around and said to me, that was better than vodka, that. Yeah. So, when you get that little, I'm doing something good. So, yeah, that's why I do these podcasts. It gives me a little bit of, like I say, nice time to reflect on my time in the prison service. Really good way to sort of meet new people. And, I miss that. Yeah. Because I left the prison service, we went straight into lockdown, which was you can imagine the damage that did to my mental health. I've gone from being with thousands of people every day to no one. Just me looking at the dog pissing on my yoga mat. You know what I mean? And me spending weeks in bed. So yeah, I focus. I've got to try not overdo it. I've got, I can get very, very tired very quickly. So because of some of the sort of overdoses that I've taken in the past, my liver and kidneys are not great. So I've got quite a rare form of anemia. So I have to be careful in terms of exercise and overdoing it and stuff like that. But if you just stick me in front of a camera and let me talk, I'll do that all day long.
You're doing really well. What would you say? Now, we come to the end of the podcast. What would you say to a young Holly Daglish coming through the doors of life now? If you had an opportunity to speak to yourself, what would you say?
Oh, that's so hard.
I always hit everyone with that one.
I think that has to be the hardest question anyone's ever asked me.
It's on a spot question, isn't it?
I'm going to get emotional again. What is it about you? You're killing me today. I would probably say, don't join the prison service. I would say, go live your life. Go far, far away as possible. Go live your dream. The dream that you had when you were 16. Go live that dream and go and do it, which was to move to America or Canada, to study abroad, to do something, take a different path in life, to not do drugs, to not drink, to,
Brilliant.
But yeah. Just live that dream.
That's probably the advice I'd be giving to someone myself, to be fair.
Yeah.
And with that, Ollie.
You fucker.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate having you on.
It's been lovely.
Thank you.